So way back in the dawn of time, actually, it was about 1988, if I remember correctly, I ran my first ever city to surf run. Well, many cities have city to surf runs or beta breakers, sometimes they're called, but this was the run that's held every year in Sydney, Australia. At its peak, this 14K run in Sydney had over 85,000 runners and was named the biggest timed road race on the planet. Think about that. That's about like 2 New York marathons worth of people all running at the same time. I remember running the first 1 kilometer and there was kind of a hill, and I turned back at the top of the hill where you could see back all the way to the starting line, 1 kilometer back. There was 6 lanes of roadway for 1 kilometer filled with people, and many were still waiting 1 kilometer further back to get to the start. And I was already 1K in, and there were some people who were far ahead of me by that time. It was completely awesome. The streets were lined with noisy spectators all along, with bands playing from the roofs of pubs that we were passing on the way. The race is actually a pretty tough course. There's a lot of hills, including its own Heartbreak Hill. And having run that hill and having run the sort of real Heartbreak Hill in Boston, I'd say the one in Sydney is about 2 to 3 times more difficult. And the finish of this city to surf run was at Bondi Beach, the famous Bondi Beach in Sydney, which was absolutely spectacular. A pretty challenging achievement for me. But for our author today, this wasn't nearly enough. He once ran it back to back 5 times, just joining the last leg, the 5th time, with us mere mortals who were only running it in one direction. So hi, and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review the running books to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope listening to us chat about running can keep you motivated about your own running and maybe inspire you to try something new or motivate you to keep on going. My name's Alan with my co-host Liz. We're going to talk today with author David Williams about his book, An Unstoppable Runner.
An Unstoppable Runner is the story of David Williams' running journey and life. He starts running in high school but doesn't continue afterwards. In early adulthood, he starts drinking and smoking, and this habit continued until he realized that he was not very healthy. One day, one of David's colleagues told him to buy a pair of running shoes, and this is how he started running again. David now has over 40 years of running in his legs and some very long runs. Although he started with the more popular distances in local races, he kept asking himself if he could go further or run longer, which brought him to discover ultra-distance events. In parallel to his running journey, David talks about his life journey, which included some major life events, including a divorce and the death of a child. David shows us how running helped him learn about himself, cope with adversity, and learn to be flexible with his goals. A little bit about the author. David Williams is a longtime runner who still enjoys endurance events today in his 70s. He has done many ultra-distance runs of all types in the trails and on the track, and has participated in both measured distances and time-based events. Although ultra running is popular today and anyone can find a race close to home, David started in the 80s when you didn't have access to the internet to search and register for races. He learned about events by word of mouth and by doing other events, and was not always sure that his registration was received until he got his bib. Another thing that David is as passionate about as running long distances is books. Although not related to his first job, David has owned a used bookstore and still scours used bookstores and the internet for running books he doesn't have in his extensive collection. It's only fitting that David is now an author of a running book himself, and we are honored to have him with us today. So welcome to the podcast, David.
Well, thank you. What a generous introduction. Thank you, Liz.
And I guess the first question, as always, is how did you decide to write this book?
Well, I've been, as you said, I've been running for 40 years, and I'd accumulated a few stories in my head. Yeah, so 40 years of thought, and it only took 2 years to write. The concept was to tell my story, warts and all, with details with some of the great events that I've entered, And I wanted to show that I can still be out there having amazing adventures at the age of 74, 75. So if I can, so can most other people.
I guess having mentioned 74, 75, in the book, you also have a three-letter acronym, or TLA, as we call them, three-letter acronyms for someone who's 74, 75 and still running. Called OFR.
Yeah, an old fart runner, yep. That's me, and I'll continue to be an OFR till the day I drop. I've already organised on my gravestone to have engraved, "I'd rather be running."
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's a good epitaph. But I called it an unstoppable runner because over the years that I have been running, I've had many setbacks, as all runners have minor injuries and injuries. Well, I've had a few major setbacks, and the title just wanted to show that I will battle them each time and I will always be back.
Yeah, I think your first battle was actually when you wanted to restart running after, having a few years of drinking and smoking. I bet you that wasn't very easy. So how did you go from this kind of lifestyle to really like the opposite end of the spectrum and having the lifestyle you have now that revolves around running?
Well, the lifestyle I had when I lived in Hong Kong wasn't the greatest. We earned big money, but the lifestyle was pretty ugly, I thought, and it wasn't me. And I didn't know who the real me was then. I was 30 and perhaps still searching for who I was. And as you said, somebody talked me into buying a pair of running shoes. And I knew nothing about running, so I put them on with a flashy pair of shorts and sprint down the road as fast as I could for as long as I could. That soon wore me out completely. I ended up with colds and niggling injuries. And it was then that I was introduced to a running book, Jim Fixx's Complete Book of Running, which I still have.
That's a good one. I remember that being my first ever running book.
Yeah.
I had a hardback with a red cover.
Yeah, I've got it right here. I can. There it is.
That's exactly the one that I have.
Yeah, so I've never let it out of my sight, Alan. But yeah, so once I'd read that, I discovered that I didn't need to go fast all the time, and that I should just work my way up slowly. And I even started to put walks in, and all of a sudden, everything changed. My whole attitude towards running changed. And even more importantly, it changed my whole attitude to living my life. Yeah. So it was a big turning point.
I feel like a lot of people, when they start running, they do exactly that. They start running and they think that every run has to be faster than the one before. And at first they're super motivated because of course it's easy at the beginning when you're just gaining fitness. You'll be faster than the time before or the week before, but eventually you're just worn out. And some people end up just quitting, and you picked up a running book and eventually ran your first marathon in 1982.
Yeah, I mean, in our club, we say things like, every day is not race day. And hey, why do you keep trying to win the training?
Exactly. So yeah, I got that book led me on to run marathons when I arrived in Sydney. I joined the Sydney Striders Running Club, which was a huge motivating factor. So yeah, I ran marathon after marathon, and as you tried to break the 3 hours, failed dismally. I got to 3:08, and then decided that the pleasure was actually in running, not in racing. So I slowed up and ran marathons almost every weekend after that.
Let me ask you a little bit about that. It seems like your first real adventures with long distance running were in Sydney, Australia in the sort of early 1980s, or as my children would say, in the olden times.
Pre-computers, yes.
What was it like? Because, we take so many things for granted in our running environment now. And what was it like running in Sydney, Australia? Or what was it like in the 1980s? What sort of things inspired you? Where did you run?
Yeah. Well, firstly, the first day I started work in Sydney. I left the office at lunchtime to go and get a sandwich, and all these people were pouring out of basements in running gear, heading down to the botanical gardens for an hour's run. I thought, wow, this is the place I need to be. So so I immediately joined in and met a lot of people. That it led me on to the Sydney Striders Running Club, which who every Sunday would have a 30-kilometre run around different suburbs. They'd issue each of us with a map, and we'd run in groups. There was a slow, medium, and fast group. And I started in the slow group at the shortest distance, and gradually worked my way up. But I was always in awe of the elite fast group. I never got there. I mentioned in my book that I ran with Bryce Courtney, the author, who wrote The Power of One.
Fantastic book.
Yeah, so there were lots of people from many walks of life that ran with, and we talked to about the issues they were facing. And in fact, George Sheehan, again another author and great running philosopher, he came to Sydney, and I had the privilege of running a couple of kilometres with him. So yeah, that was a big change. But Sydney in the 1980s was a relatively quiet city. You could cross the roads without waiting at the traffic lights for too long. It was a great place to get motivated to run.
So you're running in the Botanical Gardens. That's right in the center, if I remember rightly from my experience there. It's right quite near to the Sydney Opera House, in fact. So you're sort of, I guess the equivalent for New York would be running in Central Park.
Yes, although Central Park's a lot bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to do a few laps of the Botanical Gardens.
Yes.
I think just because your first marathon was in 1982, and being before the internet, and there's a lot of things we take for granted. Because I remember I started running in the 90s in high school, and even I was I maybe didn't know everything that happened in the background. I would show up. I had a coach. I would show up. I'd get in someone's van. They drove me to a track. I would go run, and then they drove me home. And that was pretty much it. But like behind the scenes, you have to register for these races. There's no internet. So what was it like? Like, how did you find events, and how is the registration process? I think like a lot of us take it for granted. And then we can get into the other things that we take for granted, like sports gels, Gatorade at races, which is another thing that you mentioned. Maybe, wasn't so much available in the 80s.
Well, thanks, Liz. You've made me feel really ancient. No, registration. You usually manage to find forms at other events. So you'd be at a fun run, and there'd be entry forms for those coming up in the next couple of weeks. People that you knew, that you ran with, said they'd heard of a great event coming up, and you telephone or go to the office of the company that was promoting the run, and pick up a form. Alan, you'll probably remember in the City to Surf how difficult it was to register, and you'd sit.
It was sponsored by the newspapers, so you get the entry form off the back of the newspaper.
Yeah.
And then you'd post it. You'd post it. That snail mail.
Yeah, snail mail, and then you'd sit and wait for the number, your running number, and some pins and details of where and when to go.
Sometimes you have to send them an envelope with your address on, with a stamp on, so they could post you back the stuff.
Yeah, I've forgotten that. Yeah. So yes, that was good. But you know, now I really enjoy scanning the internet, looking for events that are going to stir me, and yeah, I find
Yeah,
that.
we have it so easy now. I mean, we can
Yeah, you youngsters, all you have to do is just surf the World Wide Web thing and just enter
yeah.
everything you want wherever in the world.
Or you can just be a kid in the 90s and then like your parents do it for you or someone does it for
Oh,
you. It just all happens and then you just show up somewhere and run.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because my dad was a very keen sportsman. He was, God rest his soul, he was really only interested in his own sport, and he didn't. Whilst he'd encourage me, he wouldn't really front up to any events to watch, or he'd sooner be off doing his own thing. So I think you can see how things have changed since that generation through to the current generation. Younger mum and dads now spend all day Saturday hauling the kids around to events, and you know, we see them also at marathons now. They're on the roadside cheering on their offspring. So yeah, things have changed radically.
Yeah, I had a little bit of each because normally my dad wasn't interested in anything I was doing. I would usually do sports through school and I would just, stay after school and come home whenever. But when I got into running, because my dad had been a runner and was still a runner, then he got overly interested. And he'd follow me to all these races. And he was like one of the only parents. So I was a little embarrassed because, it made me different. So, uh, so I guess now we can go on to the part where you mentioned that during marathons you might eat a Mars bar.
Oh wow, wasn't that a different world? Yes, Mars bars, snakes. Do you have snakes in Canada? Probably.
Like gummy
Uh,
snakes?
yeah, gummy snakes.
Oh
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yes, those are good.
yeah. Those, just really lollies, sweets.
Just when you
Uh,
mentioned snakes, I thought, wow, he's really gotten into the Australian thing. He's eating snakes.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
just kill the snakes with my bare hands and eat them as I run through the trails.
yeah, yeah.
Gummy
We got.
snakes. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but so the sugar hit was great to start with, but within half an hour you could,
You get
as
the
we all know,
crash. Yeah.
you crash, and sometimes it's just about when you to hit the wall in a marathon, bang, you're even worse because of the sugar deprivation. So yeah, thank goodness things changed and science stepped up, and we've now got some great things, the gels and power bars and things like that, plus all the electrolyte drinks. Mm.
And a huge amount of new knowledge about how to use them effectively, when to take them, how often, et cetera,
Yes,
which is pretty
yeah.
good. It shocks me that you said you ran a 3:08 marathon. That's really close to 3 hours. So weren't you like attracted to just go for a 3-hour marathon, or did you have lots of tries on it, or before you went to ultras?
And we're just curious because we need some tips
Yeah.
to get to, because we're at like 3:05. And so we want to see what maybe you would have done differently or what you tried.
Yeah, well, you're talking to the wrong person for inspiration, I think. But I got to 3:08 and found that I was, like you said, desperate to break the 3 hours. So I started doing more speed work. I was doing 400 meter repeats. I started doing a lot more hill work. And on my long run on a Sunday was a tempo run. I instead of taking it easy, I pushed myself hard. Within 2, maybe even 3 months, I was getting niggling injuries. I was suffering from cold after flu after cold, and wasn't feeling good. And I just got talking to a couple of running buddies, and they were the same. They'd been trying to push themselves too hard, and we decided, well, look, we love running. We love running marathons. Why don't we do them at 3:30, 3 hours 30 minutes, and run them whenever we can? So we found them. one weekend after another. And we just ran marathons, not much in between then. We just go for a few quiet jogs in the week and run another marathon. But I envy those people that can break 3 hours. And Alan, you look, if I may say so, a little old to be trying to break 3 hours. So I take my hat off to you completely.
I'm far too old to be trying to break 3 hours. It's kind of a retirement project. Okay. Convert retirement into rest, reduce stress, increase training, better nutrition, better knowledge through these podcasts. And can I then convert that into a 3-hour marathon? The current answer is not yet.
Well,
we're going to have another go in 2022. So.
Oh, good, because some people retire and take up lawn bowls. Yeah. You've retired and taken up 259.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
good.
we'll have some other. Our rule is enjoy the training, and then if you get the result, it's a cherry on the cake rather than the be all and end all.
Yes. Well, in my opinion, it's all about mindset, Alan and Liz. Self-motivation's the key. And I think if you tell yourself you're not capable of doing something, your body will accept that. Where the opposite's true.
Did you ever do the Canberra Marathon?
Yes, I did. I was in the Olympic trial.
Wow.
Yeah, I waited for that pause. Yeah. So were 5,000 other people.
Yes.
But that's only 5,000 people. That's amazing.
Yeah. I can't remember what year it was, but our hero, Deeks.
Yeah.
Do you know
Robert De Castella?
Robert De Castella. Yeah. He was running, and we all went down to join in and failed dismally. Well, in fact, that was my 3:08 was in the Olympic, but they didn't pick me.
Yeah, my marathon PR was set at the Canberra Marathon.
It's a lovely course up to the lake, but it was too many loops for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you had to do it again, let's say you just ran your 3:08, and now you're thinking of the 3-hour barrier. If you had to do it all again, what would you do differently? Is there anything you'd do differently?
Yes, I still do the speed work and the hill work, but I think I'd take the long runs a lot more easy. Yeah, and I think there's still place for tempo runs, but shorter. And when you get to your 30k long Sunday runs, they need to be easy, in my view.
Maybe easier, at least easier than tempo. Tempo sounds hard for 30k.
Yeah, I didn't really have much of a brain then. I don't think my brain turned to mush.
No, I think actually you probably just trained like all your training buddies, which is kind of a little bit what we all do, right?
Yep.
So how did you find it? So eventually you decided running slower and more frequently is fun, and I guess that logically leads you to probably ultra runs, trail runs, or ultra distance. But I didn't even know that they did those in the 1980s and 1990s. So how did you find out about those kind of events?
Like you say, it was a bit of an underground movement, ultra running. And again, through people talking, I heard there was a 50-mile run from a place called Wollongong, south of Sydney, up to the Sydney Town Hall, and it was a horrendously hilly race on the road, but crazily enough, I decided to enter it, and then spent the next 2 or 3 months regretting that. But eventually, I fronted up and stood there next to all these skinny, mean-looking runners. And thought, I'm in the wrong place here. I'm an outsider, but I wasn't. I loved it, and I discovered that running all day was just the greatest feeling. and as I said, it's mindset. But the solitude, being inside my own head, I just loved.
So I guess that's what got you hooked. And is that still what keeps you going today? Because it seems like, you just got into this ultra distance thing and you just continued and keep on going.
Yep, keep on keeping on. In my 70s, I got diagnosed with athlete's heart, which is basically caused by me running too many ultra marathons over 40 years, which is a strange thing, isn't it? Because I'd have thought the more you ran, the healthier your heart would be.
Mm-hmm.
But the muscle became so enlarged and so strong that it affected its efficiency. So now I have to watch my heart rate, which really still annoys me, still upsets me. So I walk for a minute and I run for 5, maybe 7 minutes, and then walk again. And I'm learning to accept that. But in my head, I'm still a non-stop runner.
You discovered Galloway's training methods
Yes,
forced upon you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, forced upon me. Yeah, actually, I was told I shouldn't be running at all. But who listens to medicos?
I know that runners, don't like to listen to the don't run directive from anybody. It's like like when you're injured and your physio says, okay, well, you got to take 2 weeks off, and you just are adamant about not doing that.
Yes, I must admit to being guilty to all of that over the years. Yeah, I'd go. One of my running colleagues was actually a GP, a doctor, and if we got an injury, the first thing we asked him when we got into his surgery was, "Can I still run?" And he'd say yes. so that's why I really went to see him.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, sort of. I mean, I say jokingly to the guys when I'm running, why are you going to the doctors with your problem? They're only going to tell you to cut down, and you're going to ignore them. So, or stop even, and that's unacceptable. So, but I guess that's bad advice, really.
Yes, well, hopefully people aren't listening to me for advice.
No, listen to you for inspiration, or read your book for inspiration rather than medical advice.
Yes. Well, I hope so. When I first published this book, I was absolutely amazed to get feedback from people that I met out on runs or just people in the street who've read the book, and received hugely complimentary, positive comments from non-runners, even people who said they're going to start walking and get themselves healthy again. And that to me is the biggest compliment that I've been paid.
I think that your journey is really it's really great in that I think you can inspire sort of just anybody, because oftentimes somebody like me, I'll go to work and people will see me run to work, which is kind of a bit crazy for most people, and they just figure like I'm just the crazy runner. And sometimes they'll say, oh, I wish I could run. And then I'll try and convince them that they can, but they don't really believe me because for them, like, I've never been like them. But you've been there, and your story, you tell your story about how you were drinking and smoking. It was a complete opposite lifestyle to what you became later. And I find that can sort of bridge the gap for most people.
People who don't run or don't have a lifestyle can identify better with that, rather than looking at people who are the finished article and going, well, I can't be that. Well, no, you can't be like tomorrow.
But you can be.
Eventually.
It will happen. It will happen. I mean, I fell in love with running. The book tells running stories, but it's really hopefully motivating people for the cycle, the walk, that go to the gym to motivate themselves to get fit. As I said, I fell in love with running, and I believe in monogamy. I had a flirt with the gymnasiums, and I had a short affair with cycling. But in the end, I returned to my love. And really, all I want to do is to be out on those trails running, and I prefer it on my own. I like my own solitude. I like solitude, sorry. And I listen to podcasts occasionally when I'm on a really long run. But where I live is surrounded by the most beautiful bush tracks.
Well, you give me a good entry there, because you actually live in a place that I didn't know about, and I've never met anyone who's lived in this place. A place called Flinders Island. Where on earth, where in the world is Flinders Island, and what caused you to end up living there, David?
Well, it's in the middle of the wild Bass Straits between mainland Australia and Tasmania to the south. It's the same size as Singapore in area.
So it's small.
Small. But Singapore's got 5 million people. We've got 1,000. Here, there are no traffic lights. There are no roundabouts. There are no halt signs. Everybody waves as they pass you in their car.
Is it like Crocodile Dundee? You sort of walk down the street and you say hello to everybody, and you know everybody by their first name.
Correct. Yeah, we know
That's
everybody.
absolutely fantastic.
But
Isn't
hang on,
that wonderful?
I don't carry a knife.
Well, not like that, but one of the things in Crocodile Dundee was he was used to saying hello to everybody because he knew everybody in the town or whatever.
Yes.
And I've visited small towns in Australia where they actually do that. You're walking down the street and people will pass you and they'll say hello. So they'll say, hi, good day. How are you? How you doing? And you go, oh, great. And you walk along, you go, that was strange. Then the next person says it. And then after a while you go, oh, this is how it works. So then you start saying it to other people because everybody's used to seeing the same people all the time.
Yes. So that's our little island. It's about 40% of it is covered in bush, and it's owned by our national parks system here. But it's principally agriculture for income. We produce a lot of the best beef that comes out of Tasmania. So that's the main. Beef and milk-fed lamb are our main products. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't indulge myself in those delights. But my wife and I, we decided Sydney was too much for us, and we wanted to get out, retire, and move somewhere quieter. And we decided an island was the way to go. And we tried several islands. We visited on holiday, didn't like them. So we gave up and came to Flinders Island for a couple of days on the way to somewhere else, and ended up loving it. So we bought a house and moved here. And that was 20 years ago.
Wow.
And never regretted leaving the big smoke. Never. It's a wonderful place with very caring people. I joined our local council as a community service 15 years ago, and have enjoyed looking after, or not looking after, but doing the best I can for our little community. We have many issues here that on the mainland doesn't apply. We have difficulty with our waste disposal systems, and fire hazard reductions, things like that. So council play a very important role.
That's fantastic. So have you run every single trail and every road on the island?
I've run every road. In fact, I've run twice. I've run the whole length of the island, which is 76 kilometres, with a great deal of community support, because I was raising money for Cancer Council or Cure Cancer, and the local community dug deep into their pockets and supported us throughout those events. So that was a great deal of pride in doing that. But and I've run most of the trails, but there's probably some out there I've missed, but who knows? It's like, they're not really mapped.
How do you find them?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. or other people say, have you run so and so? And I haven't, so let's do it next Sunday.
So I guess because we talked about you raising money for cancer, I guess we should maybe talk about why you started raising money for cancer. I mean, you did have your own little bout with cancer, but it was one of your children that you lost to cancer. So maybe you can tell us about Allison. And in the book, you actually mentioned several times that that Allison is very, she was very strong going through treatment. And you think about her sometimes when you're running really long distances and you've hit a hard patch, and you know, you just think of her and how she would fight through her cancer journey. And maybe you can let us know what Allison was like, and what you admired about her, and what keeps you kind of going in the races when you think about her.
Yeah, well, you hear people say that others are beautiful people. Well, excuse me. Alison was truly beautiful to look at, and she was so incredibly strong. She was a jogger, walker, yoga, swimming. She was intensely keen on being fit and worked very hard at it. And the thing she taught me was that, you know, you've got to just suck it up. And that's what she did throughout her battle against cancer. She went through all the chemotherapy, but came out smiling. She knew the end was coming, but she didn't stop being the strong person she was. And, you know, when I've been in the middle of or at the tough end of a long ultra, I reach down and into my thoughts and remember how strong she was, and those words, "Suck it up, old man," would come into my head. So, yeah. I'm sorry, I got upset then.
Well, that's okay.
It just means, you know, that she was truly special.
Yeah.
And you actually had your own tussle with, was it bowel cancer?
Yes, I had bowel cancer. Yeah, at the young age of 53.
Wow.
They said, look, you're a runner, you're 53, and you're a vegetarian. You shouldn't be having this, but
No.
But it just happens to, it can happen to anybody anytime.
I mean, the thing is, you know, all those good things that you're doing reduce your chances, but they never reduce your chances to zero.
That's right. Yes, yes, exactly. Never to zero. Yeah.
And of course, they improve your chances of recovery as well, because you're a fit guy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope to keep that way. Yeah.
I guess both of these things, losing Allison and your own experience, is what led you to dedicate the book to raising funds for the Cancer Council Tasmania. Yes,
indeed. And when we see what these organisations do to support sufferers, and every family knows someone or has someone who has battled cancer. When you see what these organisations do, it's mind-boggling. And if I can support them even a little bit, I'm very proud to do so. We actually organised a run in Tasmania, from Launceston to Hobart, which is the northern city, Launceston, down to Hobart, which is the southernmost city in Tasmania, which is 200 kilometres. So we raised 30,000 Australian dollars for Cancer Council then, that was the most memorable and the most proud I've been, not just of myself, but of all the people that supported me in that run. So yeah, it's I think like all runners find, the running community is a generous, caring community, and especially trail running. I find the people are absolutely amazing. They'll stop and pick you up, even if you don't want to be picked up, they'll pick you up and drag you to the finish line.
Even if you just wanted to stay at that aid station and have somebody drive you to the end and go home, they won't let you. Yeah.
I got to one aid station, and I'd actually put my back out. I'd I'd got like a slip disc, and I shouldn't have been doing the run anyway. But I got to an aid station and I asked if there was a doctor present who could give me some painkillers so I could finish. But they would, yeah, there was no doctor available for 2 hours, so I just carried on. But yeah,
Oh boy.
we do silly things.
Yeah. So with all this long distance running, and knowing that, when you were starting up in your marathon journey, there wasn't so much knowledge about eating on the run and those kinds of things. Was there a point, like when did you figure out how important nutrition is during the run? I mean, was it something that that you knew right away, like as of the first race, or did you have to find it out the hard way?
The hard way, definitely, Liz.
Oh.
I listened and watched what other people were doing, particularly some of the more elite or the elite runners. They were guided by science. I was ignorant of that science in those days. There hadn't been much written. There was, of course, no internet to look it up on. So you just took word of mouth of people that you ran with, or read in the newspaper, basically. But there were no books written back in the 80s that I was aware of, anyway. But now it's sort of common knowledge, and there's no secret to it, obviously. But it's something that I learned over the years. But I still make mistakes. I still pull into an aid station and go, "Wow, look at all that!" And I just tuck into things that I've told myself I shouldn't be having. But you reach for whatever help you can get.
I describe it as running. You run in, and suddenly there's a buffet laid out.
Yeah,
stations are the one beautiful thing of ultra running, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah, well, don't they call it an eating competition with running thrown in?
It could be.
America has far bigger buffet selections in their ultras than they do in Australia or other places I've run.
Yeah, it could be. It's pretty spectacular because, I haven't done many ultras. They kind of intimidate me, even though I've done several marathons, but I'm a little intimidated by the 100 kilometers, 100 miles. I'm just not too sure about the whole running through the night thing. But I did do a 50-kilometer trail race. Actually, I think my first introduction was we have this race called the MRSQ in Montreal. It's a bit of it's not a race where the course is closed. It's just sort of a bunch of people start together and you run according to a map that you have to make sure you have to know the route, and you end up at the top of Mount Royal. And along the way, they set up little like tables with a whole bunch of food. And it was the first time that I had seen during a race, like boiled potatoes with salt and like mini pancakes. And it was just
peanut butter and jelly.
Sandwiches. I mean, it was incredible. I never, up until then, it was like, well, you had Gatorade and you had gels, and then you'd alternate between the two, and you just hope that everything works out till the end of the marathon.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. You've done a 50K.
Done a 50K.
Yeah. Longer. It's no more painful. It's just time on your feet, and it's great. It's great. Those hours where you think I can't put one foot in front of the other. But that's only your brain telling you that to protect your body. Your mind is strong, and strong minds will get you to put one foot in front of the other until you have to stop at the end.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would go. We're all gonna go to this 50-kilometer trail race, and at this same trail race, it's called the Quebec Mega Trail. The same trail race also has a 50-mile option, and they have a few longer ones. I think they might have I don't know if they have 100 miles maybe. But our training partner is doing the 50-mile race, and so I very briefly kind of thought about it because I thought, well, there's somebody else doing it, would be at the starting line at the same time. But yeah, when it was time to sign up, I was too scared. And I thought, no, 50 kilometers is way long enough for me, because I had done it before and it took me 10 hours. So I couldn't imagine doing an extra 30 kilometers. I didn't know how long that would take me.
Well, the good news, Liz, the good news is that many races allow you to change, so that when you get to your 50K, you can actually say, yeah, I think I'll go on to the 50 mile. Yeah, come on. Just do it.
How about I think about that?
You don't know Liz, David. Liz would just burn out in terms of using stress energy, because she constantly thinks she's going to fall over, and she thinks every tree root is a snake.
Well, we do have that in Australia. We have lots of snakes. And I used to run with my poor old dog who's left us last year. But she loved the long runs, but we'd be down the trail and there'd be all these tree roots ahead of me, and she'd jump over them, and then 10 meters behind, I ran 10 meters behind. And then one of the roots would rear up and raise its head and look at me.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to jump over them or throw a stick at the snake to get it out of the way.
Yeah, luckily here we don't really have to worry about that. But yeah, I think that would be pretty scary. So you didn't just do the long ultra runs. You've also tried the multi-day stage races, which I think are kind of nice because you get to sleep in between your runs. But yep. How does that compare? What do you like about those multi-day stage races? What keeps you coming back? Because it seems like you've done a lot of them, and that you keep looking out for other ones to do. Yes, I intend to keep on keeping on. The thing I like is that like you said, you can do these long distances in remote places like the desert, but have a rest in between, something good to eat. And as I've got older, I found that the cutoff times are very friendly, so I don't need to travel all these distances just to be kicked out at the end of the first day or the first 20 kilometers. I'm allowed to come back and keep on going. As I said, they're a great event for getting to see such remote places in the world. I fell in love with the Red Centre of Australia. We have one across the Simpson Desert, a 250k race, and another one that I keep doing each year, which is called the Larapinta Trail Race, which is up near Alice Springs in the centre of, they call it the Red Centre because the desert and the rocks are all ancient red sandstones.
That's a fantastic experience. Listening to your chapter 7 called Heading to the Desert. I think that was about the Simpson Desert event.
Yes.
I was getting goosebumps. I've been out there. I've never run did you call it the Big Red Run? The Big Red Run, yes. Yeah, I've never run that run, but I've been out there to Alice Springs and Uluru. So I could conjure it up in my head as I was reading your book. Tell us about this Simpson Desert Run. Tell us a bit more about it. Well,
the desert, it's a strange phenomenon. I actually sort of trained for it on our local beaches because I thought soft sand would be the go. There was so little sand in the middle of the desert. I was absolutely stunned. It was just rocky terrain. There was soft salt pans. There were bushes and there were no trees, but these huge sand dunes that we had to run up and down. And but yeah, it was an amazing place. But the rocky terrain just tore my feet apart. I had horrendous blisters, and in fact, one person had such a bad blister they used super glue to stick it back on, his skin back on. So yeah, everybody suffered badly from blisters on those 5 days, but 95% of us finished, and thank goodness for the good cutoffs. the long day, which was 84 kilometers across all these sand dune after sand dune, that took me 12 hours, and that was
Oh, wow.
that was a huge effort. And halfway through that, I was of the opinion that I couldn't put one foot in front of the other anymore. But owing to the strength of a young lady who was running with me, we did. We got there. So yeah. But the desert is an amazing thing, and yeah, I love those open spaces.
There are just no towns at all. There are no. I mean, you started a town called Birdsville, I think.
That's right, Birdsville.
I assume that's quite a small little place.
Yeah, it's just a little settlement.
A one pub town or something.
Yes,
like
one pub and 20 camels.
Wow. And what is it like to plan for those kind of runs? Because like you did mention a few times that a lot of them have you have to bring your own food. There's some mandatory gear, and then there's a weight limit sometimes about what you can bring.
Yes, well, it's a great excuse to obsess about it. They do give you a mandatory gear list, and that's a great excuse to spend a bit of money and get some nice stuff for running. And we all love our gear.
Excellent.
So that
running
was
gear,
a good,
right?
Yeah. So that was a good opportunity. But then eating, that's the other big thing of ultra running, as we've said earlier. So you search out the different freeze-dried foods that exist, and they're all as bad as each other. And a lot of people now freeze-dry their own food, or dry their own food, I should say, and make their own meals, which is a lot better for taste in the middle of the desert. In fact, after 2 days of that big red run, I couldn't stomach any more of that food, that freeze-dried food. So I was just drinking power shakes. So that was my sole source of protein.
Oh boy. And what about water? Do they provide the water, or did you have to bring a certain amount with you?
Yeah, we had to carry at least 3 liters, but they did provide top-up aid stations. But there was no food at any of those aid stations. There was just.
So you're going through this inhospitable terrain,
yes,
totally unoccupied by any civilization, and you're carrying how much on your back while you're doing this?
I'd say it's only about 7 or 8 kilos. I suppose a big bag of spuds. That's, but yeah, I mean, again, it's just training. In your training, you run with packs on and weight, and you get used to it. And it does alter your it did alter my running style. And I found that just if I use the ultra shuffle method, keeping my back straighter and head up high, it was less of a strain on my back.
I think at one point you actually hired a coach to help you prepare for one event. And after that event was over, you got rid of the coach. So I was kind of wondering why. Like, did it? Well, first of all, do you feel it helped to have a coach? And if so, well, why'd you get rid of him afterwards?
Well, hang on. I think getting rid of was a bit hard.
Liz is a member of the coaches union.
Well, I when I was doing the big red run, I thought it would be of big help to me, because it was a terrain that I didn't know. It was a style of race, because it was my first multi-dayer. So I thought a coach would help, and he certainly did. And he made me realize a lot of things about myself and my running. But after I'd finished the big red run, I thought, well, look, I don't. It's not that I don't need a coach. How do I say this? Because I don't pretend to be an expert or a great deal of ability. But I just felt that, look, all I want to do at my age now is to enter the events, and run them, have fun, enjoy being out there in the middle of nowhere, and finish. That's my current philosophy, and I don't think many coaches sort of accept that runners just, that's all they want.
Yeah, because they're there to tell you that you need to do all the other stuff like strength training and prehab and rehab and all those other things. So
Yes.
so I can kind of understand if you're not gonna want to do all those other extra things that they're telling you to do.
That's right. Well, my training now is just long runs. I don't run for anything less than probably an hour and a half, that sort of time now, and I do that because I love being out in the middle of the bush. So yeah, I do a bit of fartlek training, just to do something a little different in the middle of a run. But it's long, slow distance is my cup of tea.
Is there anything that that the coach kind of like made you do that you've kept in your training, like any strength component or just, I don't know, a nutrition strategy or something like that, like anything that he had proposed maybe that still benefits today?
Yes, mostly stretching, and I really dislike stretching. I don't stretch before I go for a run, but he insisted that I did certain manipulations to my legs that I know have helped me over the years. So I do stick to that. But he changed my running form a little, and that again I have to sort of focus on that. On my form in the middle of a long run, because there is a tendency to slouch or just change your gait. So I have to concentrate on that. So that's one of the things I think about when I'm running too.
So regardless of like whether or not you want to be coached, do you recommend that other people take a coach?
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, a coach is a wonderful thing. None of us are experts, but the coach has more knowledge and can correct a lot of faults that you have in your running style, or open your eyes to, like you were saying, to proper nutrition, to proper training methods if you want to improve your speed or distance. So it's a very important thing. And I'm, by me not having one, just I hope doesn't come across as being hypocritical.
You said at one point in the book that even sometimes when we tell ourselves like what we shouldn't do, then or something that we should never do again, or something that we should do, we oftentimes forget, and then we just end up going around in circles and telling us ourselves to do it again. I think runners are a little bit like that, but I sometimes I wonder why we do that. Why are we like that? Why do we keep making the same mistakes, doing the same things?
In my opinion, it's because my brain goes to mush in the middle of a long run, and I forget all the things that I was meant to remember, sometimes including where home is.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, if you're into running, what you need to do is wherever your interest lies and wherever your experience level lies, you need to invest in your learning. And Running Book Reviews podcast is a good resource to help your learning. Plug for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at some stage in your journey, a coach could be a very good source of that learning. But it depends where you are on your journey. When you first start out, trying to do, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, you need to get to a certain point before probably a coach would help you learning. And probably at the end, you go, well, I've done all of these aspects. I just want to do the social aspect of running or do the experience aspect of running. And maybe a coach is not adding value at that point. And you're probably there at that latter point.
Yeah. Plus, my coach was in Sydney, and I just got a training schedule delivered to me each Sunday, ready for the week. So he wasn't sort of there by my side one evening a week or anything like that. So I guess that sort of made it a bit more difficult.
Did it help you not overtrain? Because I know that in the book you mentioned a couple times that you had that tendency to sort of overtrain, and then you'd either start getting sick all the time or you get injured or something like that happen. So when you were with the coach, did he sort of prevent you from doing that, or did you end up just running more than he said?
No, he introduced sanity into my running for a brief few months. Yes, and now I'm back to normal.
Yeah, you can't have too much sanity in your running. That's not going to help you. It's counterproductive.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me change the subject up a little bit. I noticed a character and quite a well-known, famous personality, certainly in Australia, that crops up in your book is a guy called Pat Farmer, very, very famous in Australia, ultra running personality, but maybe not that well known in North America, where most of our listeners are, or Europe. So maybe you could tell us who's Pat Farmer and why it was so important to you in your ultra journey.
Of course, I'm holding up Pat Farmer's book, which you
Pole to pole, one man, 20 million steps. We'll have to put it on our review list.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should. He's a friend of mine. I first came across Pat in a 50-mile race back in the 80s, in the dark ages. Pat was probably 16, 17, and he was running 50 miles then. And he's run as I've just shown you the book, he's run from the North Pole to the South Pole.
Wow.
Probably came past your door. He's run across India. They're all runs to raise money for charities. He's basically given up a lot of his life for charitable benefits. So yeah, he's an amazing man that I admire tremendously. So he has been a motivator for me. But there's no way I would ever have been able to emulate his achievements. I just take my hat off to him because he doesn't get injured. He just keeps going.
So did you sort of hear about him and be inspired by him and then meet him afterwards, or was it the other way around?
I ran several races with him and I was totally unknown to Pat. And we didn't really know each other back then. Our local running club have an annual running festival, and we always bring down well-known speakers and pay them for their time and look forward to hearing their stories.
And they fly out to Flinders Island.
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, so we pay for the travel, accommodation, and a speaker's fee. But we invited Pat down, and I got to run with him a bit and talk to him a fair bit, and reminded him of our mutual run races, probably where he was lapping me endlessly. But yeah, we got to know each other, and Pat was amazing. We paid, I think it was something like $5,000 fee for his speaking that weekend. He just gave the check back to us and said, "No, I admire what your running group does. I'd like to be an ambassador for your event. I don't need money, thank you."
My goodness,
incredible! Yeah,
That's
amazing
amazing.
man. And I think yeah. Just on the side, I think you'd really enjoy talking to Pat. He's been a politician here in our federal government. Yeah, so he's an amazing person.
So we can see from that why you were inspired by him and why he crops up, apart from the fact that he's obviously an Australian.
Yes, he is a proud Australian. Yep.
I'd Pat Farmer and his book or his books to the list, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
We'll need to get to that next year sometime.
Yes, we will.
If you want his contact details, please let me know by email.
Okay, that's great.
That'd be great. Yeah, so I guess we kind of found a kindred spirit because you like running books as much as we do, and you actually mentioned several titles throughout your book. why don't you tell us which ones maybe influenced you the most, or that you've gone back to the most? We already know about Jim Fixx's book.
Yeah, I guess the one I read most often over and over is probably the one that everybody does, and that's Dean Canas's first book, Ultramarathon Man. I find that quite inspirational. The way he writes makes me want to get out there and run through the night and eat pizzas. But the most interesting book I found was Jewel in the Sun, which was about the Boston Marathon with Salazar and my brain's gone to mush now. But it was the most interesting book about how two men's lives were utterly changed by running a marathon. That I would highly recommend to anybody that's looking for an interesting read rather than something that's motivational.
My brain's gone to mush as well in terms of who the second person is who ran with Salazar.
Beardsley, yeah, his name is Beardsley, and he turned to petty crime.
Dick Beardsley.
It was amazing book.
Yeah, I know Alberto Salazar's life changed with the marathon, but I don't know that story. I haven't read that book, so we got to put that on the list too.
Yeah,
good.
We know plenty about Alberto Salazar because we covered the Nike story, Win at All Costs, with Matt Hart. We spoke with Matt Hart about that fantastic expose. And in fact, we have a tendency not to buy or use Nike stuff since we read that book. We've become a little
totally applaud you.
Anti-Nike.
Yeah, I totally agree. What they the way they operate is shouldn't be supported.
Although their performance shoes are very good.
I don't know. I stick to Hoka's.
You're a Hoka fan.
Yeah. Oh yes.
I ran a multi-stage, probably my claim to fame in terms of life experiences. I ran a multi-stage race in the Himalayas called the Manaslu Trail Race.
Yes. I know it.
If anyone is looking for an extreme adventure in a controlled manner, but no luxuries and no cars and no roads
and now we're going to have to apologize to Dale, your wife, for putting that seed into your brain.
Anyway, that's a fantastic event. But while I was reading your book, I got fascinated by your multi-stage ultra in Cambodia.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could tell us about your experience in Cambodia.
Well, firstly, the people were absolutely incredible. The local people, the villages all turned out as we ran through them to wave and shout hello, goodbye. We ran across paddy fields around the surrounding banks of a paddy field, and we got invited into the paddy field to help them cut their rice up and using a scythe. So that was wonderful. The heat and humidity were quite oppressive, especially the jungle day, which was again an 80-odd kilometre day through jungle. That really took its toll. But we were sort of calf deep in mud, lost our shoes and had to dig them out, and that sort of. But no, it was amazing, and we slept in some of the ancient temples. We camped in the temples, and that was great. And we finished at at Angkor Wat, which is the biggest of their temples, which is an amazing place. It was a mind-blowing event. But I know what you mean about Manaslu because I actually registered for it. But I had to pull out because I had pneumonia. So, and what year did you do that, Alan?
I think it was 2018.
You didn't meet a man called Will Cox?
No.
No. Okay, a friend of mine ran. Will Cox ran it.
I could be pretty sure he wasn't there because there are 50 runners, and you get to know almost everybody by the time you finished.
Fantastic! Isn't that good? It was the same in Cambodia.
I'm still in touch with people. 3-4 years later, I'm still in touch with quite a few people from that event?
Yeah.
Because you bond like a family in
Well, I
your
was going to
in
say,
your adversity. You sort of
yeah,
bond together.
yeah, and you are a family, and that sort of carries on for the rest of your life. Yeah, I totally understand.
And it seemed that it was it during your Cambodia race that everybody got their running shoes stolen?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
there's only one person
Oh,
got their shoes stolen, but yeah, we were staying in a village hall. Yeah, we woke up in the morning and found a pair of running shoes had gone astray. I mean, these little villages are full of people with nothing. They own a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and a pair of flip-flop thongs, and that's their clothing. They see us runners appear with $200 pair of shoes, and they desire them, and I can understand that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but we got the person's running shoes back, but we had to give them money. That's fair enough.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you just triggered a memory from me in Nepal. When we were running the trails, we were supposed to follow the course that was marked, and it's pretty wild. Yeah, it was marked with ribbons, with little colored ribbons. But the villagers would come out and collect all the ribbons because they could use those and they were quite valuable to them. So,
Yeah.
so you'd run out. There were no markings, and then you'd run for a kilometer through some bush trail and go, I haven't seen any markings. I'm completely lost. We'll have to turn back. And then you come across, a village, a little old woman. She's holding about 50 ribbons in her hand. You go, oh, I guess we're going the right way.
Yeah, we had that in Cambodia. But we'd see the kids running around with pink ribbons in their hair.
Yeah, and you were like, oh no, hang on. You could have just kept those there for like maybe another few hours.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess on the upside, the race organizer doesn't have to go take them all down.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
No, they're just gifted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear. Yeah, it was good fun.
Like, what words of advice would you have for runners thinking about doing their first ultra distance or their first stage event?
Well, firstly, as I said earlier on, it's all in the mind. It's as long as you don't race off too fast at the beginning and walk the hills. I think me, anybody is capable of running an ultra marathon. But we do obviously need to train. But it's time on your feet, and don't listen to your brain telling you that you have to stop, because your mind needs to be strong, and a strong mind will get you through to the finish. And of course, once you've finished, you are so elated that the pain means nothing, and you start looking the very next day for your next event. And that's, and I can guarantee that's what will happen to you.
And that's the point that you realize that you've passed into another world.
Yes, a subterranean world. People don't sort of realize the normal everyday world doesn't see you get up at 4 or 5 in the morning and go off for your long runs, and they don't realize that this life exists. I don't think
they sort of wonder like why you never go out for drinks after work and those kinds of things, and it's because in a way you lead kind of a double life. It's almost like you lead you have your work life with your work friends, and then you have to you go home and you have a completely different life.
Yeah, 2 lots of friends. Yeah, the non-running friends don't understand, so
yeah, you can't talk to them about it because they go blank and glaze over after 3 minutes. And
yes.
Your running friends, you can't talk about anything else.
That's weird. Yeah, very true.
So in terms of people getting a copy of your book, we've said before that all proceeds go to Cancer Council Tasmania. How would you like people to access a copy of your book?
Well, thank you. Firstly, it's available through Amazon, Booktopia, Book Depository, those sort of online stores. But if anybody if anybody would like me to sign a copy or write a message for as a gift, they can contact me and I'll mail it out to them personally on flinders.runner@hotmail.com. And yeah, I'd be delighted to hear from anybody. In point of fact, if I sell the book directly, more money goes to the chosen charity.
Okay, so a double win.
Yes.
Better charitable hit, and you get a personalized copy. So
yeah, it'll reduce the value of the book, obviously.
It's been disfigured by David Williams, the author.
Yes.
So if it's okay with you, I could put that in the show notes, that the email where they can contact you to get a signed copy.
Yes, please, Liz. Thank you very much.
Great. And if people want to follow you and see what you're up to and what your next race is there a place for them to do that?
Yes, I'm on Facebook, as the rest of the world is. Just David Williams. They probably see Flinders Island as there are so many David Williams in the world. Yeah, I'd be happy to hear from anybody and talk running, especially ultra running. So please, yeah, everybody feel free to get in touch.
And I think despite what you said about, not having many recommendations that we should follow, I think that you do. You would probably be a fountain of
very
advice.
least you would have recommendations for books to read about it if you didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, happy to talk running anytime. Thank you.
What I would say about the book, it's a great little story that's inspiring and touches very clearly the passion that we all have for running. The book's actually quite humble, doesn't dwell on some of the difficult personal challenges and experiences that you clearly had, David. For me, it brought back great memories of my time living in Australia, but around the same time that you were there, in fact. And maybe if we checked, we would find out that we actually ran in some races together without realizing. There's a little section with some photographs, and there's some references in the back, which I think are fantastic additions to the book. We've mentioned about the proceeds going to the Cancer Council of Tasmania to help sufferers. So I would encourage people to buy the book. It doesn't cost you very much, and you're donating for a good cause. David himself has had bowel cancer and lost his daughter Alison at the age of 28. If I look back on I have three girls, and their average age is 28. And if I thought about losing one of my daughters at that age, I mean, they're in the height of their beauty. It's just totally devastating, and I thank you for sharing your experience a little bit there. It's a very hard thing to do, I think, and you're doing it for a good cause. And I, personally thank you. Heartfelt thanks for your mention, even though you don't go into it too much in your book. Clearly a difficult thing to experience and talk about.
Thank you.
So I thought this book was a great story about a lifetime of running. And David also adds in some details of his non-running life, work, family, health, so that we realize that it's not always easy to make time for running, but it is always worthwhile. I like that David is able to look back on his years of running with fond memories, even though he didn't have podium finishes or prize money, which is what our society usually uses as a measure of worth. I liked learning about the way people found out about races that were outside their neighborhoods through word of mouth or attending other races. We definitely have it easy today with the internet, so that was eye-opening. And it was great to see that even back then, people would do races all over the place, but it was by word of mouth. It had the same effect as the internet. I liked the last section of the book where David outlines all his favorites. So his favorite books, his favorite running stores near him. I skipped over the favorite beers, but I think Alan probably liked that addition. I don't drink beer, so and there we go. Alan showing his beer.
Excellent.
So great read.
Yeah, the beer I've just drunk while we were having the podcast was a beer from the local La Brosse brewery I'll give them a mention and they might give me some freebies. You never know. The beer is actually called, it's an English bitter, but it's called Bitter Englishman. And I often say they named it after me because I'm a bitter Englishman.
Well, that sounds a lovely beer. I'd like that. So look, thank you so much for such generous words. That moved me a bit. So thank you.
Cheers, David. We'll just thank you for your time and just do our outro words. Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you today to David Williams for providing a review copy of his book and spending extensive time with us early in the morning, Australia time, on the podcast today. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you'd like us to review in future episodes, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they are released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. That's all for us. Bye for now.
Bye for now.